Coming up next on this special edition of Arizona Horizon, he's been described as the most valuable player in jazz, a first-line drummer who's played with everyone from Dizzy Gillespie to Diana Krall. He is Phoenix native Lewis Nash, and he's next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to this special In Focus edition of Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Lewis Nash is among the biggest names in jazz. He's a drummer whose skills are celebrated regardless of whether he's playing in a small group or a big band. As such, he's considered as perhaps the most talented drummer of his generation. Not bad for a Phoenix kid. We welcome Lewis Nash to Arizona Horizon. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Ted.
You know, we should mention that we are here at a nightclub because we're going to play a little bit for us here on Roosevelt Road, Jazz Club. It's called the Nash. What's it like to be in a club that's named after you?
Well, I still have to pinch myself occasionally, but it's quite an honor, and I'm very happy that part of our mission is, or a big part of our mission is to expose the music to young people. And so if my name being a part of that mission is something that makes it happen more often or to a larger extent, then I'm all for that.
Downbeat calls this one of the great jazz venues in the world. 7th anniversary celebration coming up.
Yeah, that's quite a surprise to think about the fact that we've been here 7 years already. And we've had an opportunity to bring in internationally recognized and jazz giants to play for the folks here. And at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, expose young people to the music and to the folks who play it.
How important is it to have a club like this in terms of a jazz scene?
Well, it's important to have a place where you can present the music at the highest level. If you want, there are jazz programs here at the college level and the high school level, and even elementary and junior high levels. And so the opportunity for those students and young professionals to hear the giants and the people who have been a part of the music for so long and who've helped create the music, that's an important step. And so we're very happy to have a venue here where we can do that as well as educate.
Yeah, the jazz scene in Phoenix, where does it stand? What do you see?
Well, that's always a bit dependent on the observer. But I would say that it's a healthy scene here. There's quite a lot of musicians of many different levels here performing and teaching as well. So I think the scene is quite healthy here in Phoenix.
Better or not as quite as good as it was in the past?
Well, everything is cyclical, I will say that. I can remember a time, of course, back in the 70s when I was able to play 6 nights a week playing jazz. So if you just look at it from that perspective, maybe someone might say it was better at an earlier period. But you know, the fact that there are more musicians who are involved in the music, it means it's still healthy.
We should also mark 7 years now for the Jazz Nightclub, but also the centennial of Art Blakey. And I want you to talk about him and how the club plans to celebrate 100 years of his birth and just his influence on your music.
Well, Art Blakey as an influence on me as a drummer goes back to my earliest opportunity to start listening to the music. Of course, I couldn't hear him live here on any kind of regular basis, being in Phoenix, but my records under Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers name were among the first jazz records I ever bought. And so there's a very famous recording of Art Blakey live at Birdland. Let's see if I can remember the year. I don't remember the year right now, but early 50s, maybe 1953. Clifford Brown and Lou Donaldson were in the front line of trumpet and alto saxophone. Very famous and well-known recording. So that was my introduction to Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers.
And the Jazz Messengers, it was almost a rite of passage for a lot of jazz players to be in that group.
That's right. So what we're doing here for the upcoming anniversary is celebrating 100 years of Art Blakey, but also bringing former Messengers, musicians who were part of the Jazz Messengers, to perform here with me, and Javon Jackson, who's the tenor saxophonist and co-leader of this enterprise.
That album that you listened to when you were younger, I mean, was that a big, what got you? You're a kid down there in South Phoenix, you're growing up, just everyone else growing up here in Phoenix. You decided to get into drumming, you decided to get into jazz drumming. Why?
Well, you know, having listened to most of the R&B, soul hits of the day, and the blues and gospel music, I hadn't had an opportunity to hear a lot of jazz playing growing up. So once my ear became attuned to this kind of new sound, new approach to playing the drums, it piqued my interest, and I said, you know, these guys have a freedom to do a lot of things that you don't hear often in other types of music. So I was curious about this availability to express yourself creatively on the instrument.
Was there an aha moment for you? Was there like the light bulb went off and like this is it?
I think a lot of light bulbs went off. Every disc I heard something new. So again, exploring the music early on like that got me just so curious to learn more. And it's an ongoing learning process. It never ends.
I'm sure it is. But you left Phoenix now at what age? 21?
I was 21.
And went to New York.
I went to New York and I joined the trio of the great jazz vocalist Betty Carter.
Yeah. I mean, but obviously to join that trio, to even leave Phoenix for New York, you knew you had something going here, didn't you?
Well, I was hoping.
Yeah.
I had been encouraged by mentors and inspired by folks who'd come through town and told me that, you know, I should continue to pursue it. So when I finally went to New York and had a chance to hear the great musicians I'd always read about live in person right in front of me, that just inspired me even more and encouraged me to get it together to get to New York as soon as possible.
Were there challenges there, or did you go there knowing that you were going to back Betty Carter and things were going to be pretty smooth?
Well, what I knew was I was auditioning. There was no guarantee that I was going to be selected by her or get the gig, so to speak. But everything turned out well.
When you were younger, you learned, how did you learn to be a jazz drummer? Because you do a lot of teaching now, and I wonder sometimes, you can teach, you know, do this, do that, but there's something else that goes on in art and in music that I would wonder, it seems like it would be difficult to teach.
Well, there are some things I must admit that are quite elusive in terms of trying to get someone to understand something artistically. But I think the best teachers, I know the ones that I've had in my own life, are the ones who help you realize the best part of yourself, your uniqueness, your unique voice, your attributes and qualities that make you you. And so that's what I often try to do with my students, is not to make them a carbon copy of me or to emulate.
Are you expressing yourself, or are you expressing the music?
I believe it's a healthy balance and combination of both. You have to have the confidence and the daring and the inclination to try new things that maybe you might think of yourself in the moment, in the creative moment. And at the same time, you have to be aware of the balance of what the music needs. And so there's a constant shifting back and forth between inserting your own statements or your own observations or your own sounds, so to speak, and balancing that sound or those inclinations with everyone else's on the stage.
All right, Lewis, we're here at your place of work.
Right.
Tell it, the essentials of rhythm.
Well, as a jazz drummer, or as a drummer in general, a timekeeper, there's a certain skill level to holding that time throughout a piece so that everyone can play based on where that pulse is, right? So in the early days of jazz drumming, let's say, there may have been 2 or 3 guys who would play what I'm about to play now as one person. That would be played by 2 or 3 different people. So you'd have a bass drummer playing. And you'd have a snare drummer. And you might have someone playing the cymbals, or the bass drummer might have a cymbal on top of the bass drum. So he would his right hand would be playing this, and his left hand would be playing this. So it would look like this. So that cymbal's on top of the bass drum, right? And then you have so that might be one person, then you have a snare drummer. So that's in the earlier days of that kind of groove in New Orleans, second line, time-keeping, marching type of rhythm. Now eventually that moved, the timekeeping moved from the snare drum to the hi-hat. You got that. And meanwhile, the bass drum now is playing four beats. That's more of a dance band type of a feel. So, and then that's big bands, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So eventually they move the timekeeping from here to suspended or ride cymbals. So it went from here to here to here. Modern jazz, you hear more of the timekeeping on the ride cymbals. And occasionally you'll hear some drummers still playing time on the hi-hat. Occasionally I'll do it for effect or beneath a bass solo or something like that. So if you can do those kind of basic things, you have the elements of jazz drumming. You know, of course it's much more complicated than that, but.
When you're playing in a group, let's say small group here, it just seems like everyone you're on the team, everyone knows where it just seems so fluid. Are there times when gig is over, you're packing up and you say to yourself, man, everyone was on their own, I didn't feel it tonight? Because it seems like you always feel it.
Well, I tell you what, I think there's a default when you're a musician at a certain level, to where once you're on stage with like-minded musicians and the music begins, you may not feel your best at the end of the night or whatever, but there's always a minimal amount of musicianship and care and teamwork that occurs. So to the audience, it's never going to seem like we're off if we're good at what we do.
Yeah.
We know when it's a better of nights or the best of nights. But we should always have a certain minimum level of performance.
And the same piece, it rarely sounds the same, does it?
That's the idea. That's the goal, for it not to sound the same.
Interesting. What makes a good jazz musician?
Well, first of all, I think good musicianship, first of all. And what does that mean when I say that? Someone who has a certain amount of skill level on their instrument. They're able to make the instrument produce a sound that's pleasing or that's warm or that's considered a good sound by someone who plays that instrument. The ability to play with other people on a certain level, things like that. So to me, musicianship is important no matter what genre, R&B, country, jazz, classical, rock, whatever it is. There's a certain level of musicianship that's very important.
And that can be taught, correct?
That can be taught.
But once you get that taught, you kind of got to fly off on your own, don't you?
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Kind of like life.
Yeah, yes it is. Okay, that's a good jazz musician. What makes a good jazz piece of music?
Well, I think I would venture to say something that has the ability to be continually updated, continually reworked, or seen differently generation after generation. Some pieces last in the repertoire for years and years and years, and there's reasons why. We can do them in different styles, with different rhythms, with different feels, with different approaches, different instrumentation, but that piece of music stands on its own no matter what's done to it, because that piece of work has a certain substance, a certain story, a certain melodic or harmonic content that makes it appealing generation after generation.
And you now have been a band leader in your career.
Mm-hmm.
What makes a good band leader?
A good band leader is someone who knows the strengths of the members of the group, knows how to utilize them, knows how to help keep a certain balance throughout a performance, is aware of the momentum of a performance, the energy you're receiving from the audience. Band leaders have to think of a lot of things in the moment. And so hearing what's happening with the music, observing what's happening with your interaction with the audience, knowing how long you've been on stage,
Yeah.
the pacing of the show, all of these things are in the band leader's hands.
Yeah, but when you're a drummer, I mean, they got to keep looking to you, don't they? I mean, you can, as a drummer, you can look around, but when you're drumming, they got to look at you.
I like to think there's something for them to turn around and look at anyway.
Yeah. There we go. Now, you're watching or you're listening to jazz. You've taken some cues here from the drummer. You're trying to figure out what he's doing. What do we watch for? What do some of the movements and actions mean?
All right, let's say I'm wanting to raise the dynamic level, take it to another level of intensity. I might do something. We talked about Art Blakey earlier,
Yes.
right? Art Blakey was known for a really effective press roll or snare drum roll. So maybe as the solo is gaining in intensity, he wants to take it even to another level. So he might be playing time, I'll play time, and then he does a press roll and to take it to the next level of intensity. So it may be something like something like that. You know, just a roll, and then the next build that roll up, and so that means build the intensity.
I got you.
Yeah.
A little crescendo action
Yeah,
there.
that's right.
Anything else to watch for?
Well, a drummer might change from sticks to brushes, let's say. So you have that sound, and you have this sound. I may want to bring the dynamics way down.
Yeah.
Or I might decide that I want to change the tempo all of a sudden. Or I might go into double time. So let's say and then all of a sudden you hear, I might do something like that.
Yeah.
So that's a reason to pay attention, you know. There's lots of other things, but, you know, hopefully.
That's what to watch for, huh?
Yes.
As far as jazz, in essence, you talked about the fact that you could play when you were younger almost every night of the week. A little more difficult to do that now. The state of jazz, is it strong? Is it healthy? Is it going through changes? What's happening out there?
My assessment, and I base my assessment on traveling the world and also being involved in education and performing. So I believe that I have an opportunity to see a lot of different case scenarios, so to speak. Internationally, it's just as popular as if not more, than it's always been. So I'm in Asia or South America or Europe, and I see quite an interest in the music still among young and old people. So I would say that, and then also there's education opportunities across the board around the world. So the education element is there. So I would say it's just as strong, if not as strong as it's always.
Is it stronger overseas than it is here?
I can't really say that.
Yeah.
I would probably say no. I think there's a healthy appreciation overseas, and there has been for quite a while, but there's still quite a healthy interest here in the United States.
And it's because we with traditional jazz, you know, you got the bebop, the hard bop, you got the fusion jazz, which was big for a while. What's big now? Where's it going?
There's always sights set on finding something new or relating to the people. So if I could say what young jazz musicians might be thinking now, it's how can we continue to relate develop a strong relationship with the public, with people. We don't want, the young people don't want it to be a small club of people who listen to the music. They want to appeal to more folks.
So if I'm interested, I want to be interested in jazz, I want to learn about it, how would you go about it? Would you say listen to Kind of Blue or find some jazz albums?
That's not a bad start.
Well, but it's a monumental album, and it's everyone kind of knows that. But when you get it, what do you listen for? What do you watch for?
Well, I always tell people, it's helpful to have some guidance, any new venture. So let's say you were a person who just heard about Kind of Blue and you don't know anything about jazz. You buy it and you go put it on. You're going to need someone to explain a few things to you. So you can read about it, you can go online and read things that have been said about it, but it's always important, if you really want to know, have a musician who you respect or who you believe might know more than you or be able to help you understand it better, to listen to it with you. Tell them that, if they have time, if you have an hour, I can pay you, maybe just pay like a lesson if you're really serious.
Right.
You'll find the ways to get someone to explain to you what's going on. What's so important about this recording? Why is it monumental? What's going on with the solos? Why are they important? If you really want to know, you can ask someone who will take the time to do that.
Well, I've asked the same question to classical musicians, and sometimes, or even people in the poetry, and they'll just say, just let it wash over you. Don't worry about it so much. Let it happen, then go back and investigate. Does that make sense for jazz?
That makes sense. I mean, I would say just listening is fine, and that's the whole purpose of music anyways. Everyone is affected differently by what they hear and how they experience it. But since you're talking about understanding it,
yes.
if you really want to, you're going to have to ask someone who knows a little more and who can take you inside.
Because I've tried to listen to free jazz. I don't know what's going on out there. It just sounds like a traffic jam. I don't know what's happening. I mean, is that the way it's supposed to feel?
Well, some of it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to feel like a traffic jam.
30-year career, over 400 albums, 10 of them won Grammys. What's next for Lewis Nash?
Well, I think part of the joy of doing this is not knowing what's next, per se. But I'm still recording, I'm still traveling the world, I'm still having opportunities to help young people. I just finished a week, or 10 days rather, in Vail, Colorado. I've been doing it for 19 years, every summer. There's a jazz faculty, which is myself, John Clayton, Terrell Stafford, Bill Cunliffe, Wycliffe Gordon, and Dick Oates this year. It has been Jeff Clayton in the past. But in any case, we're the faculty for high school students who are either getting ready to go to college or in their last years of high school. And it's kind of like a boot camp for them, where they come together and we drill them and we have them to learn music by ear. They can't read anything the whole time because, in their high school programs or their college level programs they're entering, they're going to get lots of opportunities to read music and all that. So that's one of the things that I've done for the past many years, and I'm still involved in doing that kind of thing. So upcoming, there's, of course, you mentioned the anniversaries coming up, and I've created an award that I give here now called the Jazz Beacon Award, the Nash Jazz Beacon Award. And I've given that to, so far, Ron Carter was the initial recipient, and Benny Golson. And they're mentors of mine, people who are very important in the music, and people who are important to me. And I just wanted to show my appreciation and depth of gratitude via this award.
Yeah, I asked what's in the future because aside from the Rolling Stones, who I think are going to be playing when they're 100 years old,
Right.
I mean, there are certain forms of art where it's kind of a young person's game. Jazz, I mean, you guys go on, and the venerate, it's just fantastic. I mean,
Yeah, that's
you got to
one of
see
the-
a future out there.
That's
huh?
one of the things I like about it. I mean, I've been a part of 90th birthday celebrations with, for example, Hank Jones and people like that who have reached that age. Jimmy Heath is another one. And there are some of my inspirations, gentlemen who'll be coming later this year to the Nash, Jimmy Cobb, who is the drummer on Kind of Blue. He's the
Oh, my
last
goodness.
surviving member of
Wow.
Kind of Blue.
Holy smoke.
And he'll be here in November.
Yeah, drumming is such a physical thing. Do you worry about getting old, not being I guess.
No, because listen, he's 90 years old.
I know.
Roy Haynes is 94, and he's still playing. So these guys are the the standard bearers, and so I think this can be done much later in life than people imagine.
Good for you. Last question. You still live in Phoenix, or are you all New York now?
I'm in Phoenix most of the time now. I'm teaching at Arizona State University now. And so I'm back and forth between Phoenix and New York for various things, occasionally recordings and performances in New York, but I'm mostly in Phoenix these days.
Keeps you in family, keep you here? Maybe because you got San Francisco, you got New York, you got all sorts of places you could live.
I have a soft spot for Phoenix.
Yeah, and especially for Phoenix and growing jazz in Phoenix, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Well, congratulations. You got a nightclub named after you. You've got hundreds of recordings. Obviously, you've got a full career still left in you because you'll be drumming when you're 90 and 100 years old.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Congratulations on all your
Likewise.
success.
Thank you very kindly.
Yes, you bet.
All right.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us on this special In Focus edition of Arizona Horizon. You have a great evening.
If you have comments about Arizona Horizon, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Your comments may be used on a future edition of Arizona Horizon. Thank you. Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.